The topic I'm going to speak about is, I'll stay on the side, is the topic there. And I trust these slides are, can you all read these from the back? Okay, a bit bright, but not okay. That topic, British adults misconceptions in 2015. This is based on research done in January this year. Regarding the Polish government's collaboration, and that's in quotation marks, with Nazi Germany during World War II. That's what I'm presenting now. This is current research. Many things you have seen about today, read about today, were investigation perhaps done some time ago, or historical records. This is very real, current, real-time stuff. Now, that topic there, that's my interpretation of the topic of this conference is how Poland and Poles are depicted in textbooks and British media. Why are these depictions happening of whatever sort you've heard described, whether Poles as victims or not, or textbook information of how Poles are portrayed, World War II-wise or not? This research that I now can report on is groundbreaking in that I haven't seen it done before anywhere, and it also hopefully sheds some light on why people do have the images they have of Poles and Poland today. You all have experienced various images Poles have based on what you've experienced in British society. I can't speak for those, I don't know what your impressions have been, but I can speak for mine certainly. Now, I come here as someone who's genetically 100% Polish. I have two passports, USA and British. My background is perhaps not a typical post-World War II Polish immigrant. My grandfather went from Poland in 1911 to the USA. So I'm a bit of a hybrid perhaps. Just about learning to speak English with a British accent, just about. So that's a bit about my background. So I'm not a typical person you may see speaking today. I don't have a long Polish background. And near my school, which is very shameful, but when my parents decided after Yalta happened not to teach their four children Polish, I can sympathize with them. They didn't know that 1989 was going to happen, wonderfully. Now, PMI activity, that's Polish media issues. You heard John speaking earlier, giving a brief history of the kind of information that we've seen, which has been very reactive to things in the press and in books, and sometimes on radio, sometimes on television, about how Poles are depicted. The term Polish concentration camp was one that 2 years ago I did not have much cognizance of. It wouldn't have turned up on my radar when I heard it. But fortunately I became more involved with Polish media issues, and I found out that the number of times this happens, 2,000 so many years may not seem a lot, but in 2014, 500 occurrences. That's because the search mechanisms that Jan and others have set up to find these in the media around the world have improved. So it is out there, and it's contributing to the perception that people have, often incorrect, about Poland and Poles, especially in World War II, but not just that. So we've gone from a reactive situation, reacting to things we found in the press as Polish media issues. On the educational side, Jan has created some booklets at his own cost and distributed those. And we have historical summaries of that information which you can read about in the booklets that are there. So I won't take time for that at all. But now we're being proactive. We're finding out, what do the current British adults really think about certain aspects of Polish history? Because what they think about those Polish histories will reflect on what they think about us as Poles. Now, sometimes when we have tried to deal with publications that say things like Polish camps are in Poland, or Polish Auschwitz, or Polish Nazis even, most of the time we can tell them, actually these are the facts, would you please change them? The majority of the time people do actually treat us nice and fairly. sometimes we have to come here. This is a place, I think over in Shropshire somewhere. Do all of you know what this term at loggerheads means? Some of you with a Polish background might not, but it means you can't agree. And when I came across that sign, I had to take a picture of it. It is so fitting. That's what we get many times. Now, this public research we're going to carry out had a purpose to it. We wanted to talk about the Auschwitz liberation in some way, and we wanted to get information which we're paying for research with a large reputable public opinion company to support our wider interventions work in combating these Polish concentration camp issues and many others like it. We also want to be able to challenge the naysayers, which Jan also mentioned. Those say, oh, people know that, we don't need to be clear there. When we say concentration camp in Poland, they know it means a German concentration camp in occupied Poland. Actually, they don't. So we began to build something. We're trying now to build an independently acquired body of current knowledge, so we can say to people, this is what people really think. Now, this research funding process, that is £500. Now, many of you may not be aware, but £500 doesn't go very far in publicly funded research. It's a small, tiny amount. But we're a voluntary organization, we have no regular income of any sort, so having that $500 and plus some pounds, you made it up to £500 in UK British money, was all we had to deal with. We had somebody from the USA, which is very helpful, and we decided that the organization carrying out this research had to be independent of any Polish group, so no one could suspect it was massage figures. It had to be reputable, it had to be a good sample size, 2,000 UK adults is typically what we find, and we used our internal PMI moderators, about half a dozen of us, to come up with these 2 questions. That's all we had money for. We'd like to have a dozen, but that was not possible. So, what should we ask these 2 very important questions about to do with Poles in society, largely related to World War II? Auschwitz, the liberation anniversary was coming up at the time, which was a big event. You would have heard about television, radio, all over the place. Katyn treachery, of course. Many people in this country have no idea what Katyn is or was. And if they're actually going to relate to their Polish neighbors, it might be helpful if they did know that. No matter how much the Poles want to assimilate, and I'm an assimilated Pole in many ways, it helps to know the history that they've gone through to get to where they are today. Now, I'm an immigrant to the UK, but from the USA, so I've got a different perspective than those coming over from 2004 here, from Poland, finding work, and being very industrious and doing a very good job and paying taxes. So I don't have that perception. I'm not sure what they think. And I'm not sure what British people think about them versus what they might think about me coming over as I did in 1981. So, or was it about collaborators with Nazi Germany? Would that shed some light? Poles' contribution to Allied efforts. How many British people know something beyond the Battle of Britain? Yes, they know about that. They don't know much else. We don't think. Germanization kidnapped of Polish children. That was another topic. Knowledge of Soviet invasion, 17th September 1939. The number of people I have asked, oh, when did Soviets invade Poland in World War II? What? Or did another country besides Germany invade Poland during World War II? No. The level of ignorance that I found personally is massive. And the last one, if you can read it, the knowledge of the exclusion from the VE Day parade. Now, these are all things of related to Poles as victims. I make no apology for that whatsoever. Poles have been victims. As of 2 years ago, I didn't realize how much. Now, the most of the Poles I know don't go around saying, I'm a victim, give me some money, give me some reparation. But I think they do want people to understand what they've been through, and that the knowledge that they have gone through society will make I'll say British people and Americans and others, more open to understanding why the Poles are as motivated as they are to actually accomplish what they have done in many parts of the world. So, these two questions are in English. I'm sure you can read them all. Now, in case there is even one person whose English isn't that strong, I've asked Alina to read these out, question A and question B, in Polish, just so you can understand exactly what's being said. Everything else will be in English, but if you understand those questions, because the wording is very important in market research.
To pytanie można przetłumaczyć w ten sposób. Czy którykolwiek z rządów wymienionych państw, później będzie tabela z tymi państwami, nie współpracował z nazistami w czasie II wojny światowej? To jest pytanie pierwsze. Drugie, przepraszam. O jest, sorry. Pytanie pierwsze, przepraszam za złą kolejność. Czy któreś z wymienionych państw stworzyło obóz koncentracyjny w Oświęcimiu albo obóz śmierci w Oświęcimiu? Więc pierwsze pytanie chodzi o to, czy któreś z wymienionych państw stworzyło, czy zbudowało obóz w Oświęcimiu, obóz koncentracyjny. I drugie, czy którykolwiek z rządów wymienionych państw nie współpracował z nazistami w czasie II wojny światowej. Przepraszam, to za kolejność.
Dziękuję bardzo. I know they're Polish for that much. Right, now, those are the two questions were asked of 2,000 adults. And these were independently done. I had no personal connection of who they asked. It was actually a very professional company. Populous is the name. And they're used by the Times magazine and BBC, perhaps other big organizations. They're very reputable. And that was very important to get a good reputable company. Now, these are the countries in the list that were ever given. Now, at the top, if you can read, these are shown in alphabetical order, but the order of the countries was changed for each person answering the question, done on screen, essentially. So they didn't have Austria coming first. They had different countries in various orders. So there's no bias as to alphabetical order. At the bottom, you may not be able to read it, but it says also there was a choice for can't recall Auschwitz, if they didn't know Auschwitz was, or can't recall Nazi, in case they didn't know where Nazis were. And then there was a don't know. The don't know is actually very important. So, on the first question, Auschwitz creators, which countries were they? 85%, and they could choose more than one country. They didn't have to choose just one country, they could choose more than one if they wanted to. So Germany, 85% said Germany created Auschwitz. Not bad. You'd think, after all the World War II films, that 100% would say that. What? Okay. Poland, only 10% said Poland created Auschwitz. Now, on one hand, I'm saying, oh, gosh, it's only 10%. That's great. On the other hand, I'm saying 10% think Poland created Auschwitz. And yet you can see how in the media, if someone sees Polish concentration camp, Polish Auschwitz, it has an effect, without a doubt. Now, Austria, 8%. At that time, Austria was technically part of Germany, but I wanted to identify it as a separate country. By and large, Austria ran this whole thing. They just were part of Germany for the war effort. So they could have had something. And obviously, one of the commanders was from Austria, famous Austrian, infamous Austrian. So, and 2% said the USSR. So, less people thought the USSR created Auschwitz than did Poland. But of course, Auschwitz was in Poland. Obviously, Poland must have something to do with it. No. So, the don't knows were 6%. Information that Jan mentioned to you from the 2004 survey had 45% of people not knowing what Auschwitz was. Now, thanks to perhaps the Holocaust Educational Trust and other bodies and communications and better teaching in schools perhaps, don't knows are only 6%, which is good. The trouble is we're not getting all the truth. So the next question, I'll have to warn you, has some shocking information in it. the results, that is. Now, oh sorry, this is shocking in terms of, this is a breakdown of that question A, but showing within the UK which percentages selected Poland, okay? So, as you can see here, it's 10% overall, that's the UK figure, and then Scotland, for some reason, 18%. So Poland, very Auschwitz, they had a part in it. The West Midlands, 14%. The North East, Newcastle area perhaps, 12%. That to me is very surprising. I don't know why that is, but this is a reputable survey, and those parts of the country were represented enough with a cell size big enough to say, we must pay some attention to this. And then you've got East Anglia, the UK, only 7%, and Wales, 4%. Now maybe that's because there were some displaced person camps in Wales. Is that true? I think it was. So maybe the local Welsh population knew more about it. So that to me is surprising. But that could also demand some further investigation. Why in Scotland does it have that image? Does this have any link with the numbers of anti-Polish, apparently anti-Polish racist attacks going on in Scotland, Glasgow especially? And there's a group called the Anti-Polish Monitor, which you can find on their Facebook page, and they record these. And that's also part of the work that Jan records as well. So that's interesting information, which to me is disturbing. It should be 0% for all of us. It's not. UK 10%. It could be worse, so I'm saying not bad. The next slide is one that has some more shocking information to me. Now, the question asked, if you recall, was which governments of countries, not citizens, not residents, which governments of countries did not collaborate with the Nazis? Did not collaborate. So, Great Britain, yes, top of the list, 73% said Great Britain did not collaborate with the Nazis. Now my concern is, what about the other 27% who think somehow that the British government collaborated with the Nazis? It doesn't make sense, does it? However, we'll think about that. USSR, this is the really shocking one. 34% said, thought that the USSR did not collaborate with the Nazis. They were in bed with them, literally. They jointly covered Poland. Don't they know this? I don't think so. There's an education job there. And if Poles feel a bit victimized by this, well, they're justified. The next one, this is really disturbing. 34% said that Poland did not collaborate with the Nazis. The corollary of that, or the corollary, is 66% think they did collaborate with the Nazis, the Polish government. How can that be? Is this faulty research? I don't think so. Everything else fits well. And if that's a reliable fact, what does that tell us about what Joe Public or Joan Public are going to think about Poland and Polish people? That is, to me, is just mind-bogglingly tragic. And it could benefit from being re-researched 2 or 3 times to see if it varies at all. But this was a very well-established company carrying out research. So, going in, I was heard about it. France, 32% did not collaborate with Nazis. That's about the same as Poland. Somehow, these people that said that hadn't heard of Vichy France. It's truly staggering. Czechoslovakia and the other lower figures are understandable. What's the most interesting thing about this, the number of don't knows, 18%. That's close to 1/5 said, don't know about this. Well, maybe some of those who thought they knew didn't, but that's a very high amount of don't knows. Don't knows are typically 1 to 2%, maybe 5%. And the other question is 6% don't know. This one, 18%. So people by and large do not know who was collaborating with Nazis. And so if they see Polish Nazi in the press, or Polish concentration camp, they'll think, oh, yeah, that's what I thought. So, disturbing. Now, I won't spend much time on this, but this has some very interesting splits. Same results on the left, and on the right you can see the male and female splits. You can't analyze all of this in the time we have, but I'll tell you a couple. Why in Great Britain 83% of the males saying that Great Britain did not collaborate with the Nazis, and only 65% of the females are saying that. So it looks like, and that's a pretty strong difference, there seems to be a female bias towards Britain collaborating with the Nazis, just a bit. Why is that? Goodness knows. On the USSR, which did collaborate with the Nazis, only 24% said they didn't, whereas 45% of males did. There are some anomalies here, not easy to understand, and I don't think these are mistakes in research. Very simple questions, very simple choices. Now, the don't knows tells us some of the answers perhaps. Men, 10%, women, females, women, 25%. That's a big difference. So there's something about what the gender issues are showing that may actually steer us towards better education or better awareness perhaps. Right, let's go on to the next one. The implications of this research. More corroboration and expanded research would be wonderful. We think it's required. Especially this countries, governments that did not cooperate with Nazis. Poland, 66% collaborated. That's so wrong, it demands attention. We need to consult with Home Office, police, education departments, and other arms of government about this disinformation that's apparently out there. This is hard fact. This isn't someone's idea, this is what I think. This is purely what people, the public, said. All they were told was this to do with World War II. Now, we need to gain the positive attention of the media. It's not easy to get the positive. Often media go on negativity. They feed on that. So a good Polish story in the press, will people be interested? Hard to say, but we need to find some pillars. That's something which I think we've all joined in. Now, we had some comments about the way the Poles are taught in schools and what textbooks have, etc. today, but we have to do something else to make it correct and expanded. My two children have been through their ages 32 and 26 now, been through the British education system the whole way, and I know that they didn't know. They weren't taught things that I told them about. Right, the last one. There's a lot we could be doing if we have the funds and resources, and we should have people willing to do it. But the last is don't give up. And here's my initiative on don't give up. That may be hard to make out that drawing, but there's a frog grabbing onto the crane's neck for life. It's not that bad for us, but that is a good initiative to think about. Now, I have here to hand out to you afterwards details from the research. It's very fine. We never project that. You couldn't read it. But I'm happy to give those out with the proviso that's written on there to take away if you like. It shows more of the details and splits for these two questions. By all means, do come and have one afterwards. As John said, there are copies of the publication in the German campus over there, and we might see some more collaboration of various groups on carrying out research. It does cost money, but anyway, we'd like to work with the Polish Media Issue Group on getting some more original, real live data that we can use in various ways, by all means contact Jan and myself. And finally, the elections are now in progress. You all know that. So when you speak to politicians, write down what they promise you. Can you read that? I'll read it out to you. Now that's obviously a cattle car of some sort, cattle transporter, sheep, cows, whatever. It says, caution, floor covered with political promises. Finally, thank you very much for listening to me, and do contact us later to have some talk about it.